You cover a seed like Jesus in the tomb. He's covered. It seems like he can't get it. There's a rock in the way, but down comes the angel, throws it away. And in the last days, Jesus is going to sound that mighty trumpet at one of these, and then graves going to crack open. We went to a cemetery out in Michigan, and there was where Ellen White is buried, there's a big sepulcher of a very, very rich man. He was one of the wealthiest men of his time. And he didn't want to believe in the resurrection. So he built this big sepulcher so strong that if Jesus came and there was an earthquake, he wouldn't get out of the tomb. But there was a little seed that got in there and it cracked the cement. It cracked the sepulcher just from a little seed. Yes, so I don't think when Jesus comes that a tomb will be able to prevent the bodies coming forth. All right, so we need to be radicals. Don't let anything stop you from growing. And sometimes when we're in the dark, that's the best place for us to be, to develop strength, to penetrate so that we can see the light. Now, there's a beautiful quote here found in Second Selected Messages. It says, the Lord has given some, what does it say here? Next words? Simple herbs of the field that at times are beneficial. And if every family, what does it say? Every family were educated in how to use these herbs in case of sickness, much suffering might be prevented and no doctor need to be called. These old-fashioned simple herbs used intelligently, that's the key, intelligently would have recovered many sick who have died under drug medication. So what it's saying here, children, is that if we knew these simple plants God has given us to use for medicines and we use them intelligently, then we wouldn't need to go and see the doctor as much. All right? It doesn't mean we don't need doctors. It just means we don't need their services so much. Let the other people use their services. Okay? There are herbs that are harmless, the use of which will tide over many apparently serious difficulties. Wow, could that include viral infections? Pandemics? Maybe. But if all would seek to become intelligent in regard to their bodily necessities, sickness would be rare instead of common. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I totally agree with that statement. So I wish every Seventh-day Adventist would memorize this statement. It would save many, many thousands of deaths. It says people need to be taught that what does not cure disease? Drugs does not cure. Oh, that's only those drugs in Ellen White's day. Is that right? It is true that they sometimes afford present relief. Sometimes take a Tylenol, your headache goes away. It says, and the patient appears to recover as a result of their use. Wow, it looks like it's working. This is because nature has sufficient vital force to expel the poison and to correct the conditions that cause the disease. Health is recovered in spite of the drug. But in most cases, get this, the drug only changes the form and location of the disease. Wow, let that sink in. The drug will change the form and location of the disease. So you get a headache, you take an aspirin, your headache goes away. But then you end up with stomach bleeding from the aspirin. So you take another drug for that, and then you end up with a kidney infection. And you take another drug for that, and antibiotics and more antibiotics, and then you end up shooting your liver. And maybe 10, 15 years down the road, you end up severely debilitated. So it is better to use natural means that won't have these harmful poisonous effects. Do you know for a drug to be a medicine, it has to be poisonous? and it has to create side effects. That's according to the FDA. So a herb is not considered a medicine according to the FDA because it doesn't create side effects and it's not poisonous by nature. All right? But if you prescribe a herb, you're practicing medicine without a license. So if you can figure that one out, please let me know. All right, it says, often the effect of poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work great harm at some later period. Get that? So they may not work great harm when you take them, but down the road, they start to develop, because the body is always trying to protect itself. And so it encapsulates poison like drugs to protect the body from being dead prematurely. In fact, if you put, let's just take a common drug that's used, tobacco. If you took the nicotine out of one cigarette, put it directly in your bloodstream, it would kill you. But because the body releases it slow enough, it doesn't kill you. So you can keep taking more. So these drugs are often so poisonous, if they were released in the body didn't protect you against them, they would kill you straight away. So God is so good, isn't he? Protect us from the effects of these things. Now listen to this. More deaths have been caused by drug taking than from all other causes combined. Get that? All other causes combined. In fact, just from the medical literature's own admission, the American Medical Association has said that drugs are the third cause of death in the United States. But they don't take into account all the things that people do to take drugs. They don't take into effect, not just prescription drugs, but also drugs administered in hospitals, and also anesthesia, and those they don't take into account deaths from nosocomial infections and surgeries and all that type of thing. If you add it all up together, it's actually the number one cause of death in the United States. You cannot poison yourself back to health, can you? I have never seen it. In Jeremiah 46, verse 11, the prophet says, "Go up into Gilead and take balm, O virgin, the daughter of Egypt. In vain shalt thou use many medicines, for thou shalt not be cured." Now, if you read in Jeremiah chapter 42, Jeremiah is asked by the remnant left in Jerusalem, the poor of the poor people have been left behind, the vineyard dressers and the farmers. And they asked Jeremiah, "What should we do? What should we do, Jeremiah? Give us a word from the Lord." And Jeremiah got a word from the Lord. "Don't go to Egypt." And they said, "No, you're a false prophet. You're telling us lies. We're going to do what we want to do. We're going to go down to Egypt." Why do they want to go to Egypt? Because it was safe and effective. Safe and effective. It was safe because Babylon hadn't completely capitulated Egypt, even though it had wars with Egypt. They hadn't subjugated Egypt. And so it was a safe place. And they had medicines down in Egypt. And there was food in Egypt. There wasn't famine. So they went there, and Jeremiah said, if you go there, you're going to die with famine, you're going to die by the sword, and you're going to end up with disease. The very things they were trying to protect themselves against were the very things they were walking into by going to Egypt. You know, the Bible says, when they shall say peace and safety, what happens? Sudden destruction shall come. I always wonder about that verse, like, who's given this message, peace and safety? Now, if you look at the word peace, it's always used as a spiritual term. It's a salutation. It's always used in the epistles by Paul as a greeting. as a farewell gesture, a benediction, and it's a spiritual term. But the word safety is not a spiritual term. The word is used twice in the New Testament. So why is this message of peace combined with a message of safety in the last days that's going to bring destruction upon the world? I'll let you figure that one out. Have you ever heard lately a message of peace and safety? Where safety is elevated to the same place as peace, as though it's the very thing that we need to focus on in these last days? Jesus never said, stay safe. He never told his disciples, listen, you got to go to Samaria, stay safe. Make sure you don't go in any people's homes that have any diseases. All right? Did he say that? Jesus never said stay safe. He said stay connected. It's not safe to be a Christian, amen? It's not safe. We risked something to come here. Yeah, we had to risk driving here. 9 hours. And it was not safe. I nearly got hit by a truck. My wife is a witness to that. Yesterday, this truck went right over on the side of my road. I had nowhere to go except hit the truck or end up in a ditch. And so it's not safe. Life is not safe. To get out of bed in the morning is not safe. To get married is not safe. To have children is not safe. But we do it because love takes risks. Amen? You cannot love unless you're willing to risk. You got to be willing to risk rejection. You got to be willing to lose everything. That's what Jesus did. He was willing to take a risk on humanity. But we don't want to be risky in a worldly sense. We want to risk all for Jesus, but we don't want to risk our salvation, right? We don't want to risk that. We don't want to risk losing our children. We don't want to put people in harm's way. At the same time, Jesus reached out to lepers, didn't he? Was that culturally acceptable? No, it wasn't. Was it culturally acceptable to go and have a meal with Simon, with a woman washing your feet with her hair? It was not. Jesus did it. He was constantly breaking through the cultural norms of his day, because he has to reach all the hearts of the people. There's a lot of Bible references in Scripture that deals with herbs. Actually, if you take into account oils, there's over 600 of them, actually. This was a herb shop we had in Granger in Indiana. We closed it just before COVID. Thank God we did, because we wouldn't have been able to operate if we kept it open. So we decided not to renew our lease. But herbal medicine is gaining traction. It's the fastest growing area of health in the world today is herbal remedies. It's out of all alternative medicine, herbal medicine is soaring past everything. So this is a good time because people are interested in, often people think that we can't study herbs because there's New Age in there. Well, there's New Age in everything. There's New Age Bibles. There's New Ages promoting juicing, and they have plant-based diets, and they live in small houses, solar panels, and grow their own vegetables. Doesn't mean if there's one element that we don't agree with, we throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We want to take the good, and God is the one that gave us herbs, right? It didn't come from the devil. Now, the devil may have amalgamated some to have people smoke it nowadays, but God is the originator of the plants. Some people may say, well, herbs are not safe. They haven't had all these tests done on them. Well, I would say, no, that is incorrect. There's more studies been done on herbs than there is on drugs. Did you know that? In fact, let's just take turmeric. Anyone here take turmeric? Turmeric has had over 6,000 clinical studies done on turmeric. The most studied drug on the planet has only had 285 studies done on it. A third of drugs have 0 studies done. Okay. So I rang up the Poison Control Center. I said, how many people have died in the last year from herbs? They couldn't tell me. So I had to dig and dig and dig and dig. And finally, I found some statistic. It was a few years ago, but it showed 0 deaths out of 60 billion supplements consumed in the United States, largely herbal. That's pretty good ratio, isn't it? If you take something 60 billion times and it doesn't kill anyone, I'd say that's pretty safe. Wouldn't you? You can't even eat your broccoli now without some risk of E. coli from the store. All right, so we got 21 major reactions, 527 moderate reactions, 603 minor reactions. So do you think we can use the same standard with medicine today, with modern medicine? I don't think so. It says, this is God's method, the herbs that grow for the benefit of man, and the little handful of herbs kept and steeped, this is teas, used for sudden ailments, have served tenfold, yes, 100-fold better purposes than all the drugs hidden under mysterious names and dealt out to the sick. Have you ever looked on the drug bottle and been able to pronounce it? Could you read that 20-letter word? Okay. If you can't read it, it's probably a good idea not to take it, all right? All right, so we're going to look at a few simple herbs that you can use, because we just read here a little handful of herbs, right? So it doesn't mean we have to study thousands of herbs. You know, when I studied herbal medicine, I had to study probably, I don't know, I'd say close to 2,000 herbs. But I only teach, when I teach people, I teach maybe 50, 60 herbs, something like that. If you know them really well, you can avoid a lot of symptoms, a lot of disasters, sickness. So we're going to look at a few of these today. Okay, for colds and flu, who can tell me what this one is? It's what? Elderberry. Very good, elderberry. And elderberry can grow wild. It likes water. You often see it planted by a creek or stream. It loves water. Now, if you use it in America, you want to cook it because it has some cyanide in there. All right? Don't eat cyanide. Right? Don't sprinkle it on your vegetables. But if you cook it, you will denature the cyanide. So we use the European version. It's called Sambucus nigra, and it doesn't have cyanide. But the common one you'll find in the wild in America, it's got a little bit of cyanide. Not enough to kill you, but enough to give you a stomach upset. So this is very good for colds, flu, upper respiratory tract infections. All right, viral pandemics. Think about this one here. This has been the most effective in viral pandemics in the history of the world. Even doctors recommend, medical doctors do recommend elderberry after their drugs, that is. All right, and then we have turmeric. I mentioned turmeric, right? What is turmeric good for? What is it not good for? Okay. All right, let me give you, let me share something with you that you may not be aware of. All chronic disease has one thing in common. Who can tell me? Inflammation. Even depression is inflammatory. So what are you going to use for inflammation? An anti-inflammatory. And what's the best anti-inflammatory? Turmeric root. It's the best anti-inflammatory. So if you use it for chronic disease, it can help mitigate pain. It has restorative properties as well. It's very good for the immune system. It's good for the endocrine nervous system or neuroendocrine system. It's very good for helping with tumors or reducing tumors. Actually, the clinical studies looked at one of the best cancers it's good for is bowel cancer. Know anyone with bowel cancer? Recommend turmeric root. All cancer is exacerbated by inflammation. In fact, that's how it develops. Oftentimes, is being in an inflamed environment, because inflammation causes cell changes and cell death ultimately. So use turmeric root. Now, I'd like to just share with you that most turmeric has lead in it. All right, so they don't spray lead in it. It just has an affinity for lead in the soil. And so we recommend you take it as a tea or as an extract, because it doesn't have the lead in teas or extracts. Okay. All right. If there's one remedy you want in your first aid kit, this is it. Cayenne pepper. So this is excellent for strokes, preventing strokes, or helping reverse a stroke, heart attacks, and also hemorrhaging. If someone is hemorrhaging, you can save their life from using cayenne pepper. In fact, there's been cases reported where people have had an aortic rupture. Now, for those who don't know, the aorta is the largest blood vessel that comes out of the heart, and it's over 1 inch wide. You rupture that, you'll be dead in a very short amount of time. Cayenne pepper will actually cauterize damaged blood vessels within 60 seconds. Paramedics use it as well. Yeah. If someone's bleeding internally, use cayenne. We also started using this for ladies who had heavy blood loss. We started recommending cayenne. It works for that too. Shepherd's purse is another one that's very good for that, because it's an astringent. But it's good for headaches, common things, headaches, migraines, colds, flu, circulation, lowers blood pressure. It's very effective for even losing weight. Now, the reason it helps losing weight is because it increases metabolism. And if you rub the oil on your thyroid, it will stimulate thyroid activity. So it's very good for hypothyroidism. All right, it can help a lot with pain. In fact, it can stop pain transmission through blocking substance P. It's a neurotransmitter that conducts pain. So these are just a few of the things it does. We could be here a long time talking about cayenne pepper, but things we got to understand some of the contraindications. So some of the things we don't do with cayenne, we don't put it in the eyes. All right. We don't breathe it in. We don't put powder directly in the mouth. All right. Don't put it on sensitive areas of your body. And you're better off using cayenne at mealtime. At mealtime. Unless it's an emergency. Then you need to do it anytime. The best way to take it is an extract. You can use it topically. We use it in our pain salves. It works very effectively in a short amount of time. I remember one time I was flying from America to Japan, and it was a 13-hour flight. And at the end of that flight, I had about 2 hours left. I noticed my feet were getting cold, so I thought, I've got a cayenne salve. I'm going to warm my feet up. So I put a little bit on my feet. Didn't feel anything. About 15 minutes later, I thought probably I didn't put enough on. So I put some more on. And another 15 went by and didn't feel anything. So I thought, it must be an old salve. So I'm going to put a lot more on there. So I just put a lot more on there, and everything was swimming in cayenne salve on my feet. Well, I didn't feel anything at all until I got out the plane. I didn't realize at the time that sweating activates the heat properties. So I started walking, and I said to my wife, honey, I feel my feet are getting pretty hot. and then it got to feel like I was walking on fire. Had my feet up there, had my foot in the water fountain in Narita Airport. Oil and water don't mix, by the way. But anyway, it took my skin off the next day off my feet. So be respectful to cayenne. Be respectful to cayenne, and it will look after you. So just use a little bit. Don't use ghost peppers. Don't use Carolina Reapers, 2.5 million heat units. No. And don't watch Facebook where they eat these ghost peppers in 5 minutes and nearly have a heart attack. It can give you a heart attack as well as help a heart attack. All right. So just be aware about that. Okay, Vitex, chaseberry. This is a lady's best herbal friend. So all the men need to start making notes about now. All right, so this is very good for PMS. It's good for mood swings. It's very helpful for hormonal changes, fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, infertility, headaches due to hormonal changes, heavy bleeding, amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea. It's very effective. If you don't want to get pregnant, don't take Vitex. And men, this is just for women. It's not for you. All right? It's just for women. Although it used to be called monk's pepper because monks used to use it in monasteries. But anyone wants the details, I'll tell you personally about that. But anyway, it's very good as a hormonal normalizer. And it helps balance the progesterone levels. If you balance the progesterone levels, then you can also help the estrogen levels. And I hardly have met a lady recently that doesn't have hormonal problems. And one of the issues is because we have chemicals that we're taking, we don't even know we're taking, they're hormonal disruptors. We drink out of water bottles that have mimic the effect of estrogen. We put dyes on our hair. We put, we have chemical soaps and deodorizers, and we breathing stuff. And there's so many things we are getting affected by that are disrupting the hormones. So this is going to make it more essential to use the botanicals that God has given us. So my wife had two weeks out of the month PMS, and until she started using the Vitex, and it all cleared up. We also couldn't have children. Tried for a few years, and we felt a bit like Abraham and Sarah. The clock was ticking down. Thankfully, there was no Hagars, but we actually bypassed Egypt, and we asked the Lord, what do we do? Anyway, my wife got onto this Vitex, and within 2 weeks she was pregnant. We had our first child at around the age of 40, and then our second one, after seeing 3 years of selfishness in our son, we thought he needed a sibling. We're still working on that, but there's a sibling over there. Anyway, she came as a result of 2 weeks on Vitex. Actually, no, it wasn't even 2. It was a week of Vitex. So this stuff is dangerous. That's what I'm telling you. Okay? All right? So be careful. Be careful. Now we use herbs to keep up with them and herbs to calm them down. All right. So here we have prostate. This is saw palmetto that's helpful for prostate issues. So 60% of American men 40 and over have enlarged prostate. All right. I'm seeing so many men with PSA levels so high. It's no fun, gentlemen, having a diagnosed prostate gland. It's no fun going to the doctors to get the exam. It's no fun having urination issues at night and some other issues I won't go into because children are here. But it can be helped. Can be helped. So the way to help it, saw palmetto. Saw palmetto lowers the PSA levels. It actually shrinks enlarged prostate gland. It can help with prostate tumors. And in every case where we've had an enlarged prostate with high PSA levels, we put them on this in every single case, and we test them because we send them to get their blood work done. They have had lower PSA levels. We also combine it with red clover, and the other one we use is pau d'arco. Pau d'arco, by the way, is good for cancer. I don't have a clock I'm staring at here, so tell me if I got 5 minutes or however long. I could just talk all day if you don't stop me. So this is oat straw. All right. Anyone had oat straw before? Avena sativa? No one? You don't know what you missed out on. Well, this is very high minerals. Very high minerals. So that's where the farmers got that saying, sown your wild oats. It came from oat straw because it increased the virility of the stallions they fed it to. And it's very high minerals. And it's very good to give you energy. It's very good for the nerves. If you have prolonged stress, I know this is an uncommon condition, stress. You've probably never heard of it. But anyway, people get a lot of tension. This is very good for that. All right. So it actually feeds the nerves and it makes them relaxed. And my wife had 6 years of no sleep past midnight until she started taking this herb. And within 3 days, she was back to 8 hours sleep a night. And that's what she took. Now, it may not get you to sleep quicker, but it helps you to stay asleep longer and a deeper sleep. Oat straw. Yes. Probably 1 out of 2 adults I talk to have sleep issues. Try some oat straw. Even if you didn't sleep better, you actually feel better. You got so much energy. Maybe bouncing out of bed in the morning. We want as much energy as we can possibly get without caffeine. Right, Brother Damari? We want to use God's natural tonics, not man's artificial stimulants. So this is Avena sativa or oat straw. It's good for energy, good for brain fog. It's good for memory. It's good for adrenal function, libido. It's very good for relaxing your nerves. It's good for anxiety, depression, stress, ADHD, panic attacks. It's just an amazing thing. Now, when I used to live right next door to the gates of the city. That was in Berrien Springs, Andrews. I lived right outside the gates. And we used to go on the campus. And on the campus, there was the theology department. And guess what was outside the theology department? It was a ginkgo tree. And then you walk over to the psychology department. And guess what's outside of the psychology department? A ginkgo tree. And you will not find ginkgo in any other place on the campus. Only 2 ginkgo trees strategically placed by the Lord himself. And it's not getting used. I don't think they even know what it is. Yes, so this shows that God puts herbs around us that we need the most. You know, herbs are like Jesus. They're often the last resort. They're universally accessible, within the reach of everyone. And it takes humility to use them. And it takes some faith. Sometimes we don't know why, but we know it works. And so this is the same with herbs. We don't often know how, but we know they do work. Would you rather take something you know that works, or just wait till you've figured it all out and then take it? I'd rather take it because I know it works. Now, we do have a lot of science to back up how it works, but we still don't know all the intricacies of how it works. This is ginseng. Anyone tried Panic's ginseng? Okay, you just have to be careful. This is very strong. I've had 2 cases. People had a little tachycardia from taking too much ginseng. But it does work very quickly. Sometimes we get the impression that herbs take a long time to work. Well, if it's hormonal, yes. But often they work just as quick as medications. And ginseng is one of those. You can feel a difference in a few minutes with ginseng. One time I went on a buddy pass to the Philippines. It took me 4 days to get home. Knocked off of this plane and that plane, having to stay at the airport, and I was completely exhausted when I got home. And the Lord reminded me to take my own medicine. So I took some ginseng. Within 20 minutes, I felt 20 years younger. I felt energy came back. I was ready to go. But if you take it when you've got energy, you don't feel very much difference. So, by the way, this is also good for, helps with brain fog. It's very good for the brain. It's good for the adrenals. And it's very good for blood sugar as well. And it's actually the king of Chinese herbs. It's been used throughout the centuries to help combat and resist disease. It's also been used for longevity. If you've got a field of ginseng, don't tell anyone. It's like having gold in your backyard. You can pay $15,000 for some ginseng, a pound of ginseng. If it's the older variety, you can pay $15,000 for 1 pound of ginseng. Yeah. So, any farmers around here, you want to start developing a crop that will pay off? Get some ginseng. It's amazing stuff. So then we have nettle. Who has nettle in their backyard? All right. Were you happy when you found out you had nettle taking over in your backyard? Well, now you can rejoice, because nettle, instead of being a curse, is actually a blessing. Do you know that nettle is the highest in nutrition of any food or herb on the planet? Yes. Even more than algae, even more than moringa, even more than spirulina, or whatever you tell me. It's the highest in nutritional value. It's high in vitamin A. It's got B. It's high in C. It's got D. It's got E, K, and P. And it's also very high in plant protein and iron. And it's packed with minerals. It's a natural antihistamine. It's very good for lowering blood pressure, blood sugar. It's what we call tropho-restorative. That means it helps every body system. We've had people whose hair has grown back just using nettle. They're completely bald. It's very good for the immune system. It's good for the kidneys, the bladder. It's very protective for the body's immunity. It can help ladies tremendously. In fact, if you're pregnant, you can safely take nettle tea, and it will build up your blood and it will nourish the fetus. So nettle is extremely powerful. If you put your hand in nettle, it's going to sting you. But if you dry it or cook it, it will actually denature the formic acid that stung you, and it will give you antihistamines and take away the allergy it gave you in the first place. Isn't that amazing? So use nettle. Put it in your. We have on our website a nettle stew recipe. You can get that, and it's very good for iron. If people have anemia, it will build up the iron levels. We've had people as low as 6 on the hemoglobin. Start taking nettle, and the iron picks up again. This is red clover. Red clover is actually a herb that Ellen White took more than any other herb. And she would get the second tops of the flower from the fields in Michigan. She would have them collected and make a tea out of them. And I don't know how much Ellen White knew about herbs, but she was on the right in the right direction when she started taking red clover, because red clover is extremely good to protect you against cancer. It's very, very good for the blood. It's very high in iron, and it's high in isoflavones. And these turn in the body to what we call brain-derived neurotrophic factors, and they increase the synaptic sprouting of the brain. Actually produce more dendrites, gives you more neurological connections, expands your capacity for learning. And it's all found in red clover. Isn't that amazing? It's good stuff. It will even lower the PSA levels of men. Men can use this as well. It's very high in estrogen, but phytoestrogen is a very good thing to take if you have fake estrogens or plastic estrogens, or you're high in estradiol, too high from animal products. So you can take this and you can actually block some of those other estrogens from binding to the estrogen receptors. And then we have licorice root. Oh, sorry, this is ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha is fantastic as an adaptogen. And adaptogens work on mitigating the effects of stress. We use ashwagandha root for thyroid gland and the adrenal glands. We also use it for energy production. If people have fatigue, there's 3 different stages of stress. One is fight or flight, one is adaptive, one is exhaustive. I see a lot of people have adaptive, borderline exhaustive. And that's when your body just can't get up in the morning, you're dragging yourself around during the day. You try some ashwagandha. This works really, really well. It doesn't kick in straight away. It does take a little time, but you'll be richly rewarded if you start using it. This is a herb you don't hear a lot of. It's called lungwort. I got into this through when COVID came, and people were starting to get respiratory distress. They couldn't breathe properly. In fact, my wife and I, at the beginning of COVID, we traveled to Maine, and we both lost our sense of taste and smell. And my wife had really bad breathing issues. And so this persisted. And I thought it was maybe it's the air in Maine. It was different or something. But she started using lungwort. And within a day, she was back to breathing normally. This is very, very good for people who have low oxygen levels, blood oxygen levels. They're finding they can't breathe normally. It's a bronchial dilator. If you don't have access to lungwort, this is pulmonary officinalis. This is a specific type of lungwort. And you can use the mullein as a substitute. Although, I'll tell you this story. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't heard it, but we had a lady, she contacted me. She had 85% of her lung tissue was destroyed. It's very similar to a fibrotic situation for fibrosis, where the lung tissue is scarred. It wasn't fibrosis, but it was something very similar. She was not a previous smoker. But she said, is there anything I can do to help? I said, look, I don't know if this will help you, but this is the best thing that I've used. So she started taking lungwort. She used it for about a month, and then she went back to the doctor to get a test on her lungs again. They did some scanning, and the doctor was absolutely amazed, like jaw dropped, when he saw on the scans that the lung tissue was growing back. Now, lung tissue does not grow back, all right, unless something supernatural happens. It's not like the liver. You can destroy 90% of your liver, it grows back, but your lungs do not grow back. But her body didn't know that. The lungs grew back, okay? And she was just absolutely thrilled that there was some positive direction that was taking place. And I want to tell people this, that, it's not the herb of itself that's healing you. God is the one that heals you. It's just an excuse for God to work on your behalf. And they also give you what your body is lacking, right? They give you vitamins, they give you minerals, they give you phytochemistry. Okay, so it's not like some magic trick. It's not some esoteric miracle that's going on. It's basic physiology combined with supernatural blessings. And so we're told that we pray for a miracle and God directs us to natural remedies. And we're told when natural remedies are used according to God's will, it produces supernatural results. And so that's what we often see. Thank you. So this is comfrey. Comfrey is a common plant. It's called Symphytum officinalis. There's different types of comfrey. Get the officinalis. That's a really good one to use. It's very good for knitting the bones. It's good for repairing even cartilage or damaged tissue, even tendons and strained ligaments and things like that. You can use it. It repairs so quickly that sometimes it can cover up things that you don't want covered up. If you have an existing infection, you don't want to use comfrey because it will create an abscess. But clean out the infection first, then use comfrey. And there's been people had holes, craters in their skin, and they use comfrey, and it starts to heal it very, very quickly. So this is hawthorn berry. This is one of the best herbs you can use for the heart. In fact, if you go to a local health food store and look at the supplements, you'll find in every heart formula, you'll find hawthorn berry. Hawthorn, it helps with left myocardial contraction, which helps the ejection fraction, helps systemic circulation. It's very good for lowering hypertension, lowers cholesterol. It's got 3 calcium channel blockers, 3 ACE inhibitors. It helps release nitric oxide, which causes vasodilation. Any type of circulatory disorders where blood is moving slowly, you can use hawthorn berry, even heart failure and many other conditions. Herbs for insomnia. There's many different types of herbs you can use for insomnia. Here's just a few. It does pay to understand what's causing the insomnia to know how to help the insomnia. There's over 100 different causes to insomnia. There's over 100 different herbs you can take for insomnia. So if you can identify the cause, you have a much better chance of helping it. Some insomnia is, of course, stress. Some is nutritional deficiencies. Some is muscle tension. Some are hormonal or metabolic sugar issues. Some could be a lack of L-tryptophan or melatonin or vitamin D. We can just go on and on. So if you identify the cause, then you can go specifically to the right herb to use for that system. And even if you don't know the specific cause, if you know the system in which it's being effective, then you have a greater likelihood of being able to use specific herbs for helping that situation. So I'm going to stop here. If we got time for a couple of questions. Do we have time for that? All right. All right. Yes.
I was working with last week, really, in that heard everything you're talking about.
Do we have a mic? Okay. Yeah. Could you, just for the people watching online?
I had a friend, we were traveling together, and we were talking about comfrey and different herbs. And he said, well, you can smoke that. Is there any benefit to smoking any kind of herb?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so.
No. When I have my store, sometimes I have people come in and say, what have you got to smoke? I say, well, you're the wrong place. We don't recommend anything to smoke. No. Even burning herbs, I wouldn't recommend. Although there are some essential oils that you can breathe in, but we don't burn them.
Right.
Yeah, they're carcinogens you can create by burning. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question about the lungwort and the mullein.
Yes.
Mullein, of course, is very easy to find.
That's right.
And here in Arkansas, it grows. I can find it all year round.
Yes.
When you had your story, that woman was using only lungwort.
Yes, that's right.
Not the mullein.
That's right.
Okay, do you have anything to say specifically about the mullein?
Yeah, well, mullein...
Because it's one of my favorite herbs.
Mullein is very good for COPD conditions, in particular asthma. So we've used it for asthma. I teach emergency medicine. We have a first aid kit we bring with us. It's got everything in there except open heart surgery. I mean, it's just pretty much anything anyone has, we can help. So mullein is very good for asthma. I was given a talk one time, and then this lady had an emergency. She was in a dorm, couldn't get her out. She was 300 pounds, and she collapsed on the floor. We gave her some mullein. We did some other things to help her too, to relax her, also hydrate her. Did Topotman for adrenals to stimulate corticosteroids to act as bronchodilators and different things. But that is one herb that works almost every time for asthma situations. Yeah, the difference is with the mullein and the lungwort. Lungwort's the only thing I know that has regenerated lung tissue. I don't see the same thing happening with mullein. Yeah. Yes.
I don't have a question, but more of a couple testimonies. The first one, as far as comfrey,
Okay.
there's been 2 times I injured my ankle, sprained my ankle really badly.
Right.
It's when we were living over in Melbourne, and I don't remember who brought it over, but the comfrey, and I did a poultice on there. Next day, it was completely gone. Like I was limping around, could hardly walk.
Right.
Next day, it was completely fine.
That's great.
Used it on my back, strained my back, probably, forgot that I'm getting older and tried to lift something too heavy and put it on there. So anytime that I have any kind of muscle injury, I'm always looking for comfrey, and because, I don't know, it really helped me.
Amen.
And then not too long ago, was last year, our daughter, Heidi, at the time she was, almost 8 months old, and she got really sick. I think it might have been one of the variants that they were saying was affecting children, but she could hardly breathe at night. She couldn't breathe hardly at all. And we had to hold her up all night long. Somebody had to hold her upright. Yeah. And we were doing a number of natural remedies and treatments and nebulizers and things like that. But one of the things that I think actually really helped the most and cleared it up was we did a wet sheet pack and soaked it in mullein leaf tea.
Okay.
So we went out and got in lobelia and went out and got it, made a tea, soaked that in there, did a wet sheet pack, and that almost instantly she was able to breathe better and sleep and got over it. So it's just a couple testimonies of those 2 herbs.
Amen. Yeah, I was at Wellard not so long ago and doing a talk. The students were out there, and then my daughter comes in and she says, I can't breathe, Daddy. And she just collapsed in my arms when I went to get her. And thankfully, I had some. I used some lungwort. Yeah, I used some lungwort, and she was fine. She was just having a panic attack. It's the first time she's ever had a panic attack. So when it happens to you, you're like, okay, what is it? Is it anaphylactic? What has a bee stung her? All these thoughts go through your head. But it's always good. Emergencies always happen when you don't expect them, right? No one wakes up in the morning and thinks, oh, I'm going to have an emergency today. I better be prepared. So it's always good to have something on hand. And it may not be you. It may not be your children, but it could be someone else. Yes, right at the back there. And then you're next. Okay, thank you.
I've had insomnia all my life, and I've always used some sort of herbs to help me, with supplements and stuff to get me sleeping. One of them that's not mentioned, I wanted to ask you if there's other things you recommend with is catnip. Catnip tea.
Yes, we use it in our sleep formula, catnip.
Yeah. And it's very effective for me. I mean, definitely the valerian is like, I'm out. So I'm just asking if there's other things. And,
there is. That's why I said there's over 100 different herbs.
For catnip, I mean, what do you recommend other than that for catnip to help you with? Because it seems to calm my nerves, and that's part of the...
Well, they're part of what we call nervines. So nervines feed the nerves. They relax the nerves. So there are sensory nerve tracts that go to the sleep centers in the frontal lobe. And so if you've had a lot of nervous tension or stress, you deplete your nerves of electrolytes. And so the nerves they basically become hypersensitive. And so that means it's easy to stimulate those sensory nerves to cause you to be in a lighter state of sleep. So the nervines feed back those minerals that have been lost to help the nerves to rest. If the nerves can rest, you can rest. So oat straw would be another one in that arena that you could try as well. Catnip is good. A kava root is another one. There's some negative press with kava causing liver damage. I don't buy that. It was a poisonous batch back 20 years ago. All the clinical cases that look at liver toxicity happened at that time. But the kava got contaminated, but with the peelings, and you just take the root. The peelings are toxic. But kava is an excellent one as well. You may want to look at trying that. All right, maybe we'll take one more question. This lady here has been patient. Could you pass it to this lady in the front of you? Thank you.
I was having some controversy with my friends because I want to take the comfrey as a tea. And they were telling me, if you cannot take that comfrey as a tea because it's going to hurt your body. When I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I know I can use it as a poultice, but I want to take it, if I can, every day. So I'm thankful you're here because I can get a good response from you.
All right. So the question, did everyone hear the question? All right. So people advise them don't take it internally. That's because in the early 1980s, we had 4 clinical cases, 2 in America, 1 in England, and I think the other one was in New Zealand or Australia. And there were some reports that comfrey caused liver toxicity, and they blamed it on what we call the pyrrolizidine alkaloids. These are toxic. Most alkaloids are toxic. Not all are toxic, but most of them are. Like caffeine is an alkaloid. Morphine, all the enes are actually alkaloids. And so it was stated that these pyrrolizidine alkaloids could destroy the liver. Well, you would have to eat 3,000 pounds of comfrey to get the same amount of pyrrolizidine alkaloids that they inject as an isolate in rats' livers. All right? So don't eat 3,000 pounds of comfrey all at once, and you'll be fine. But if you do away with pyrrolizidine alkaloids, you do away with 3,000 different herbs. And there's 10 different kinds of pyrrolizidine alkaloids. And if you pick the comfrey leaf at the right time, you get practically 0 pyrrolizidine alkaloids. All right, depends on the time of year, and even the amount that you're getting in the worst time of the year, it's very minimum. So the body metabolizes them. So all this talk about liver toxicity really doesn't stand up to good science and common sense. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your questions. God bless you guys. I'll be giving another talk tomorrow for another hour. So if you have any questions, you're more than welcome. Come and see me. And we got some good herbs for lunch. So hope you enjoy that. All right. God bless you guys. Thank you.